Some unlikely teams are making waves in the Atlantic Division. The Oilers continue their slow start, as does Alex Ovechkin. Hey everyone, welcome into Off the Post, Postmedia's NHL Roundtable. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun sports columnist Steve Simmons and Postmedia hockey columnist Bruce Garrioch. And guys, coming into the season, I think most people felt that the Bruins, Maple Leafs, and Lightning were going to find themselves atop the Atlantic Division when it was all said and done. But almost 2 weeks into the year, and it's the Red Wings at 5-1, the Senators at 3-2, holding down the second and third spots in the division. Steve, we know there's injury concerns with teams like Tampa and Florida, but could there actually be a changing of the guard in the Atlantic Division this season?
Well, the first changing of the guard I thought would happen would be the Boston Bruins, who lost Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci. All they are is 5-0 with 7 goals against in 5 games. So it tells you how that team knows how to play defense and shut it down. So put the Bruins to the side and don't worry about them. And now it's a scramble, because I didn't expect the Bruins to be this good. And I certainly didn't expect the Red Wings to be playing the way they're playing. They have the highest run differential, goal differential of any team in the NHL right now. And nobody saw that coming. We thought the Senators and the Sabres would make a big jump. So far, the Sens have looked okay. The Sabres haven't looked that good. And so everything's kind of settling out. Tampa, Toronto, giving up too many goals against. They got to bring that down to be a competitive, high-end NHL team, and maybe Tampa can do that when Vasilevsky comes back. But right now, I thought we had 5 teams. We might have 5, but we don't have the 5 we thought we had battling for the top of the Atlantic.
Well, and it's interesting, Steve, because I think when we saw Saturday night with that Toronto game, usually Tampa has that kind of lead going to the third period, and they lock it down. And they weren't able to lock it down, and then they lose in overtime. I look at this division right now, and I too thought, this was the year that the Boston Bruins were going to take a fall. Now, they're 5-0 as we speak, but when you look at their schedule, they haven't actually, really had to beat any front runners at this point. But you thought with the loss of Patrice Bergeron that they would be in a difficult spot, and they just. So far, they've looked like where they picked up from last year. I think one of the bigger disappointments in the early going here is the Buffalo Sabres, because I think everybody thought that they would be the team that would push for a playoff spot, and they haven't. The Detroit Red Wings, but they were here Saturday, here in Ottawa. They've absolutely been on fire. They look real. Alex DeBrincat is fit in nicely in his hometown, and the Senators have kind of been on one of these through the early part of the season. So I think it's going to be competitive. I think Tampa is, I think 5 games into the season is too early to declare somebody done. But I think they are in a very, very difficult spot. And I haven't seen enough of the Florida Panthers yet to know what's happened there.
Well, Florida's just so beaten up. I mean, that team is messed up from injuries, and when you don't get the kind of goaltending that they were getting in the playoffs last year from Bobrovsky, then you're messed up on your back end with injuries to your 2 best defensemen. Name a team in the NHL you could remove the 2 best defensemen from, and then they would be able to play the same way. So, in fairness to Florida, I'm going to give them that break. But Buffalo, to me, when I looked at the roster at the beginning of the season, when I looked at last year and how they finished, I thought they're ready to make a jump. I thought they were better than Ottawa, frankly. I thought the roster was better than Ottawa's. I thought it was better than Detroit's. And I don't see any of that from their big guys so far. And I think that's disappointing.
Bruce, last week we touched on the Oilers, who did not look great to start the season. A week later, and they still don't look great. And now they're possibly without Connor McDavid for up to 2 weeks. Is it time to hit the panic button in Edmonton?
Well, probably, yeah. I mean, not having Connor McDavid is, you're taking the best player in the league out of your lineup, and you're already struggling to get saves. One of the things that has kind of surprised me about Edmonton is the lack of stability in goaltending, and to go into that Heritage Classic, which isn't an easy game to play in the first place, Steve, without your best player. You do know that Leon Draisaitl can pick it up, and he will. He's always one of their better players as well. But to go into that Heritage Classic, which is, obviously a big distraction in itself. Without Connor McDavid does not make the task any easier, Steve. In fact, it makes it a heck of a lot more difficult.
Well, I go back to Pittsburgh years ago. Whenever Crosby got hurt,
Malkin picked it
Malkin
up.
played better.
Yeah.
And he had a way of picking up his game and keeping the Penguins kind of in check.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying Leon Draisaitl can't do that. I'm saying the rest of the Oilers maybe can't do that. And as you point out, Bruce, their goaltending so far is close to atrocious. And, one of those two guys has to grab the horn because the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers should not be the best goalie in the organization. and they look right now like a team that won't make the playoffs. Now, again, it's so early to make a proclamation like that when you have the two best players in the game on your roster. They're going to come back. They're going to pick it up. They're going to win some. But I don't like what I see. And this looks, Bruce, I wonder if you think this looks like coach firing on the horizon.
Oh yeah, because you've basically got a new president of hockey operations in Jeff Jackson who is not going to take responsibility for what's happening here. You've got Ken Holland there, Steve, who basically is in the last year of his contract, and the expectation is he will not be back next year. That he's going to retire. Yeah, I mean the easiest thing to do here would be to fire the coach, and I could totally see that happening given the circumstances in Edmonton and everything that's going on around them.
Speaking of slow starts, Alex Ovechkin is still without a goal after Washington's first 4 games. He, of course, is 72 back of tying Wayne Gretzky's all-time mark of 894. Steve, we know that Father Time comes for everyone eventually. Is that happening now for the 38-year-old Ovi?
Well, I made the mistake about 5 or 6 years ago of saying this was the beginning of the end of Ovechkin. And I think he had like 35 goals or something, and that was here he couldn't do it anymore. And then he came back and, 50 and 50 and 45 and 50 kind of thing. So I'm not willing after 4 games to say this is the beginning of the end. I will say this. Alex Ovechkin's led the NHL in shots on goal 11 times in his career. From the time he came into the league to today, he's got almost 3,000 more shots than anyone else who's played in that period of time. Right now, he's 205th in the NHL in shots on goal. If that's an indication of new coaching and new line and whatever it is that's not working for him or new power play setup, that could be a problem. But he's Ovechkin, but he's 38, and he just turned 38. So I don't know if this is the beginning of the end or if this is just a really slow start for really the greatest goal scorer we've ever seen.
The one thing I did notice, now he was here on Wednesday night, and I thought he was having a difficult time getting to the spots where he could get some opportunities. And, I witnessed one of the few times, I think, in Alex Ovechkin's history that he didn't have a shot, and he went 2 straight games without a shot on goal. Now, I did think in Montreal, Rob, he was a little better. And he had some opportunities, and Mutombo made some good saves on him. But, I thought coming into the season that Alex Ovechkin would, in the next 2 years, break Wayne Gretzky's record. He's only 73 goals away. I'm not sure now. I'm not sure it's going to happen that quickly. He might have to play 3 more years to make that happen, and I'm not sure he's got that in him. One thing that has to happen is he needs to start cashing in on those good opportunities because they seem to be fewer and far between right now.
Well, when you're a shooter, and that's what he's been. I mean, you look at, I think the first, I'm going to count this for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The first 9 years he's in the NHL, 10 years he's in the NHL, he leads the league in shooting every single year. And I mean shots on goal shooting, not shooting percentage. Yeah. That means he's just firing. He's at a pistol range. Bang, bang, bang. Well, if his game is shooting and he's not getting shots, then this is telling you that, as Rob points out, maybe that this is the first sign of it slipping away. I covered Lanny McDonald, who I'm not going to compare Lanny McDonald to Alex Ovechkin in any way at all, but Lanny McDonald was a pretty good NHL goal scorer, 66 goals one year. He was on the first power play in Calgary, and in the same season was moved to the fourth line. Like, it happened fast. Like, similar age, I think. He just bang. He didn't have it anymore. And I wonder, is that what happens sometimes with pro athletes? You've given so much, you've done so much, you've pushed yourself so hard that maybe there comes that point where you hit the wall and it ends fast.
You know what, Steve? That comparison to Lanny McDonald, Father Time may be catching up with you and I, too. Yeah. Rob's still in a good spot there.
It's not that dated of a reference. I think I'm old enough to know who Lanny McDonald is as well. Didn't see him play, but definitely old enough to know who that is. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments section below. For Steve Simmons and Bruce Garrioch, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time on another edition of Off the Post.